Hi, I'm Warren Sprouse. This is the Bible Forum. We're here for you this Sunday, December 27th, 2015. It's right after Christmas, just before New Year's. And we're looking at life through a biblical lens. I wanted to give you a little bit of a rundown. There's a Christian news agency that has put together 2015's most important news stories from a Christian perspective, somewhat. At number one on their list are the Paris terrorist attacks. These terrorist attacks took place November 13. Over 120 people were injured, killed, or something during that time period. What we were not told, and this isn't in what this news outlet has stated, it's what I'm telling you. What we were not told was that the revelers that were in that Bataclan theater there in Paris were listening to music by a band. The band calls themselves Eagles of Death. And just as these guns erupted, these people were listening to a song being played by the Eagles of Death, and they were making the sign of horns with their first and fourth digits, upraised in honor of the satanic theme. The Eagles of Death are scheduled to return February 16, 2016, to finish their concert. Number two is the shootings in San Bernardino, less than a month after the Paris attacks. These people attacked a nonprofit community agency while the staff members were having their holiday party. 14 people were killed, 17 were injured. The perpetrators were characterized as radicalized Muslims. We found out later they should have been identified as dangerous long before the attack took place, except that elements in our government suspended the agency tasked with locating these sleeper cells. That, according to published reports. Of course, the Bible predicts that knowledge shall increase as we move toward the end times, Daniel 12, verse 4. But that the love of many shall wax cold, Matthew 24, 12. And we saw them both in this one attack. The knowledge was there. We didn't think it was proper. We don't want to impose whatever. And we didn't care enough about people to keep these agencies going. Number three was the Nepal Earthquake, April 25th. 7.8 on the Richter scale, devastated the country of Nepal. Over 6,200 people lost their lives. It caused avalanches on Mount Everest, which created even more destruction. The annual number of great earthquakes nearly tripled over the last 10 years, providing a reminder to Americans that unruptured faults like those in the Northwest United States might be due for a big one. Between 2004 and 2014, 18 earthquakes with a magnitude of 8 or more rattled what they call subduction zones around the globe. That's an increase of 265% over the average rate of the previous century. The previous century saw 71 great quakes, according to a report to the annual meeting of the Geological Society of America, meeting in Vancouver, British Columbia. Number four, ISIS, radical Islam, and the persecution of Christians. The rise of ISIS was detailed in last year's top 12 Christian news stories, and 2015 has not seen a decrease. Minorities such as Christians and Yazidis have experienced particular violence from the Islamic State. They have been driven from their homes, forced to pay high taxes if they do not convert. Dhimitude, they call it. And in many cases, brutally killed by crucifixion, beheading, or other violent measures. The world is starting to take notice that Christians are suffering at a disproportionate rate. Number 5, gay marriage. The Supreme Court of the United States of America decided that gay marriage was okay. 5-4 decision that homosexual couples have the right to marry anywhere in the country. Franklin Graham said, quote, "With all due respect to the court, it did not define marriage and therefore is not entitled to redefine it." End of quote. Number 6 was the Charleston church shooting. We broadcast from a community right outside of Charleston, Somerville, right up the street. If you did not live in this neighborhood, you had no idea the impact those shootings had on people within 100 miles. It was like they all lost a loved one. On June 17, Dylan Roof opened fire on Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in downtown Charleston, South Carolina. Killed 9 people. It was labeled a hate crime because the church is an historical black church. After the shooting, many members of the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church and families of the victims said they forgave the shooter. The racial tensions escalated after the shooting. The shooting sparked a heated debate, and the display of the Confederate flag on the property of public buildings was removed, and Black Lives Matter theme took on a dangerous and destructive reverse human rights emphasis. Only, apparently, Black Lives Matter. The refugee issue. Violence perpetrated by the Islamic State has caused a massive exodus of Middle Easterners who are fleeing to the West to search safety, enabled by Western heads of state who foolishly thought they were engaging a humanitarian effort. We've learned that German Chancellor Merkel was one who invited these people to come. I believe it was in Hungary. They were building a fence to stop them from coming through. They were on their way to Germany. Millions of people on the move to get away from a benevolent religious system. Number 8, Planned Parenthood. The videos came out. Undercover videos reportedly showing officials from Planned Parenthood haggling over the sale of fetal body parts. The 6th video released even shows a former Planned Parenthood technician testifying that she was told to extract fetal body parts, even without the mother's consent. Many state governors have put forward legislation to defund Planned Parenthood. Congress was under pressure to defund Planned Parenthood. In a bill put forward by the so-called conservative Republican majority in the House, Planned Parenthood was not defunded. We're now learning that there's evidence that these folks were steaming dead babies. I suppose before they dispensed of them, or perhaps to sterilize, I don't know. It didn't say. Number 9 is the presidential election. 2016 is shaping up with a lot of people who want to be president. 14 Republicans, 3 Democrats have all signed on. Many are backing out. Donald Trump has garnered strong support among many Republicans because he's an unabashed pro-American. He's saying what most Americans believe, and he's running ahead of the pack. The primaries will tell the tale. It's easy to take a national poll. It's a little more difficult when you have to go throw a lever, push a button, whatever you do. In my opinion, I don't think that Trump is going to be president. I think people would love it for somebody like him to be president. But I don't know that he would be the one. Number 10 is the Duggar Scandal. The family embroiled in this thing, stars of a TLC program, 19 kids and counting. Turns out that I think it's the oldest boy has had a history of sexual encounters. Not all of them major events, but he's guilty of doing things he ought not to do, calling molestations. He's going into rehab and that sort of thing. In the middle of all of that came the Ashley Madison website hack, and it was revealed that a lot of Christians were signed in there. Some very well-known, internationally known men. Number 11, the Baltimore riots. A young black man was killed, they say. He died of a broken neck, complications afterwards. They claim it was because he was being battered around in the back of a police van. They're going through the trials even now. Juries are having a hard time. But it staggers the imagination that almost an entire community would riot in the street and destroy their own community. Stores were burned down, looted. Stores that probably will never return to that area of Baltimore. For weeks afterwards, they claimed that enough drugs were stolen from the drug stores to supply every drug addict in Baltimore for 10 years. If you were a businessman, would you go back there? They're calling this justice, a step forward. But rioting has become a common way to express outrage. We have Jesse Jackson now, the Reverend Al Sharpton, to thank for all of that. Number 12 is the Christians that are being targeted in major shootings. 2 major shootings in 2015 had Christians in the crosshairs. One was in Kenya at the Garcia University College, 147 people killed, another 100 injured. The second took place at Umpqua Community College in Roseburg, Oregon, where the shooter killed 9 people, asking them, "Are you a Christian?" If you answered yes, he shot you. Evangelist Franklin Graham urged boldness for those who hold the Christian faith, said, "Here's what I know we can do. Like the courageous men and women of Umpqua Community College in Roseburg, Oregon, we can stand up for our faith by unashamedly confessing Jesus Christ." They knew they would be killed when they stood and faced the gunman, and they stood anyway. Would you do that? Could you do that? Southern Baptist Convention has issued their top 10 stories of 2015. I take that back. It's not the Southern Baptists who did this. It's somebody who did this for them. A fellow by the name of J.D. Hall, who inhabits a website called The Pen. And he is telling us what he considers are the top Southern Baptist news stories. The first one has to do with Lifeway book sellers. That's a Southern Baptist bookstore. And their selling of books that talk about so-called people dying, going to heaven, and coming back. Most prominently, the boy who came back from heaven. And they're being rebuked because the boy himself said his father wrote the book, but it wasn't true. And he said they knew it before they sold the book. They sold the books anyway. Emails from within Southern Baptist hierarchy indicate that they knew it. They also talk about abortion as unchristlike, and worse than inflammatory. The Religious Ethics and Liberty Commission research fellow Karen Swallow Pryor says that the Southern Baptist press has not reported on this story. Southern Baptists break bread with the gay community. We talked a little bit about that. Matthew Vines met with Southern Baptists. Nobody understands why. Number 5, Baptist College President Ergun Caner resigned from Bruton Parker College. He was resigning initially because of personal reasons. It turns out that it wasn't what he said. He thought it was because his son had died and he was grieving, but as it turns out, he was resigning because of accusations of sexting and of racism. He has since filed divorce from his wife. They're both alleging infidelity. Baptist College sweeps President Jimmy Epting's adultery under the rug. The college let him resign with accolades. Almost all of the insiders testified to the board that they knew there at Baptist College what was going on. The Baptist State Convention withheld funds from the college initially on the strength of these accusations, but then exonerated the board, saying the board was not involved, and so the money went back. But folks there at the Penn ask, isn't the board spiritually responsible? Should they have known? Number 7 is the Ethics Division of the Southern Baptist Convention partnering with the Humane Society in terms of an animal rights campaign. They're going to get together with the most radical animal rights group in the world. Again, Karen Swallow Pryor, who heads up the Southern Baptist Ethics Division, doesn't have a problem with the animal liberation movement. Take your money, you put it in the pot, they'll spend it on just about anything. Southern Baptist President Ronnie Ford is going to speak at a hyper-charismatic cult. We've talked about IHOP on many occasions. Right now I can't remember what IHOP stands for. International House of Praise. IHOP is the quintessential charismatic empire in evangelicalism, and it qualifies as a cult. Why would the head of the Southern Baptist Convention want to go and talk to these people? At this convention, there's also a Catholic track. If you're Catholic and you're charismatic, you want to show up, they've got something for you. You can worship with the Southern Baptist president. Lifeway's Ed Stetzer also partnered with the radical imams and advocates for Sharia law. He is the number 2 guy at Lifeway. Islamic scholars are calling for Sharia law and all of this connected somehow with the Southern Baptist because they want the Southern Baptist to supply data to help them understand how to relate to evangelicals. And the Southern Baptist group is thinking about doing it, I guess. Do you really think that the radical Muslims want names of Southern Baptist churches and members so that they can call and talk to them about Jesus? You know, are they interested? I don't know. I would think this was a dangerous event. Southern Baptist Seminary president endorses and does promotional videos for an atheist group. He's promoting it. The seminary president promoted an openly secular, humanist, hostile, anti-Christian organization. For what purpose? Don't know. I guess he wants to try to get them to come to his college, to his seminary. This is what happened in 2015. It's going to get worse.